Hi, and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host, Fire Chief Scott Freitag, and with me once again this week, Assistant Chief John Feddema. John, how are you?
I'm doing well.
So we had a conversation before we came in here, and basically this week is kind of like a Seinfeld episode. It is a podcast about nothing.
And there's no real purpose, which I don't know is that much different than some of our other ones.
That's true. That's very true. But will be entertaining. We actually came up with a topic that we could talk about last minute because, as you said, we want to keep it from going south.
It has a tendency to do that. I think that's why no one watches it when I'm here, because at some point, it goes south, and it's just like a train wreck. Sometimes you got to look away. You got to turn it off.
But I think the train wreck was more you can't look away, and
maybe sometimes.
Sometimes, but this one you just don't click on it, then you don't see the train wreck. And
Perfect.
Then it's just there. But I think what you brought up is actually a really good topic to talk about, because everyone that works here at some point has to give a presentation about something. Sure. And you're working on becoming a facilitator. Is that the right word at
Sure.
Mighty Oaks?
Yeah.
But they're pretty strict about who they allow in to do those things. And so you had to do a presentation on Sunday, and you were telling me about that. And then we just had a board meeting, and we can dissect a couple of presentations we gave that night. One, I think we did well, and the other one we didn't do as well. So what was it we did wrong? But tell me first about your experience Sunday with having to present, and it sounded kind of, I don't know, be a little unnerving to be one person looking at another person virtually, on Zoom,
Sure.
And then you just talk, and they're really not acknowledging you.
And we all know how much I like words to begin with.
Right.
So, that was compound that, and it was a lot of fun. Like you said, obviously I've been working towards taking the next step, which, like I say, it's, the next step is, they call it phase 2, which I have to present while we're there. The program itself is like 1 week long.
Okay.
So I have to present, and I have to lead one of the little breakout groups. And so the presentation that I give, they vet it very carefully before I ever give it.
Right.
Because some of it is they have a very set, the curriculum that they have, and what they want you to present is fairly set. What they ask is that you put some of your own experiences into the presentation, into what the topic is, and the topic I have to give is on character. So they ask that you put, who you are in it, but you have to hit those key points.
Right.
And like I say, they vet the process. So on Sunday, I had a set up time with on Zoom, and the individual, we get there, and he's the person I'll be mentoring under when I'm there.
Okay.
I've talked to him several times before this, and this was kind of that next step in the process. So for 45 minutes, I talked, and he observed, took notes, and critiqued the presentation at the end of it. Like I say, some of it was a challenge just because it was on Zoom. It wasn't in real life, but some of it, the challenge was being in that vulnerable position, knowing that at the end of this, he's looking at every word. It's almost like an oral board. No one chooses or will go in an oral board willingly. Usually there's a purpose to the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it definitely was, wasn't sure how that was going to go, but at the end of it, we talked for another probably hour, and he had his recommendations. And some of the recommendations was simply on time. So there was different phases of the topic and the presentation. And he said, okay, you spent 15 minutes here. You spent 3 minutes here. You spent 5 minutes here. Right. And he had all the times documented. And he said, why was this one so much more important that you spent 15 minutes here and 3 minutes here? You need to make an adjustment. You got it. So I have a page of notes on the positives, because there was definitely positive feedback. But again, it was being in that vulnerable position to get that very direct feedback that here's how you need to correct it. Here's what you need to do to dial in, because they have a very specific, I won't say plan, but they have a very standard. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Thank you. A very specific standard that they want coming out of that. And it's my job to do my best to meet it. And so it was good.
Well, how do you think that experience will play into things that you do here? I've seen you speak before. I've seen some of the programs you put together, like for the Mojave County Leadership Academy. I mean, they're spot on. The information is excellent. How will this experience help you improve in little ways when you present other material?
I think part of it was just preparation is key.
Right.
Putting the work in beforehand, making sure that the information was solidified in my own mind, so I could recite it. I could speak on behalf of it.
Right.
I could provide depth to the concept. So that was the preparation is key. The other part of it is obviously just the technique in doing it, and that just comes with time. Speaking at any level for me was not something that comes naturally.
Right.
You use words, you speak very well in any kind of situation. It takes a lot of prep for me. It's a lot of work. I have to put the effort into to get something out. So this was good. Just kind of a reminder, like, no. Keep getting better. You can continue to work on it. And I go back, I think I've told the story before, but teaching the kids, at the fire pals, like that was a great experience to learn from, because they were picking their nose and just happy to be there.
Right.
And I could repeat the same information, and they're just looking at me like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that the first time. This is good.
And they didn't.
Yeah, they didn't.
And they didn't hear most of it the second time.
Probably right. But it was a great opportunity to build some of the skills to even be able to get something out.
Well, you made mention that I use words. I like words. I'll just throw this in for you because you can use it at some point against me. But when we had a presentation with Stiefel today, who's handling our certificates of participation, and Chief Tharp was in a different meeting, so he wasn't fully participating. And they're like, "Are you okay to start, Chief, without Chief Tharp?" And I said, "Absolutely, just go." I said, "Now remember, I know and understand big words, not numbers. So don't use big numbers with me."
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's, it's understanding your strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, absolutely.
Or as, was it Galloway, lesser strengths.
Lesser strengths.
Yes.
There we go.
I feel better about that.
You don't want to call them weaknesses. No, you're just not as strong in that area. Yeah, the reality is, though, that presenting, the idea of getting up in front of a group and presenting a topic or idea, there's a professional presence that you have, an executive presence. And if you are spending too much time in one area and not enough in another area, or you're skimming over this topic but going too much into this one, you don't have that executive presence when you're standing up there.
Sure.
And your message is likely not getting across to the people you're talking to. And I struggle with that on the EMS side, DHS. Now, I'm not going to go south, but what I'll say is that, that's a topic that's passionate. There's a lot of information there. And sometimes what I have to do is take a step back and remember, we already have the background.
Yeah.
There's no need to go in depth on the background. Just give the update of where we are today, and then leave time for people to ask questions.
Sure.
So when I go before town councils now and talk about that particular topic, I'm very specific on here's where we are, here's what we've done, here's where we think we're headed. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, and like you say, anytime, the goal, I think, is when you're speaking, teaching, even if it's a skill set on a fire ground, the goal should be to consider, what is the person retaining? What is the person walking away with?
Right.
And so often, like you say, we can get caught up in our own emotion, our own frustration, and you start going down a path, and they're just sitting there like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care nearly as much as you do, and I'm not retaining any of this. So it's about, I think, again, what are they walking away with? And if you can hit those key points, that's going to be more successful at the end of it, whether it's a presentation before the board, or you look at the Mighty Oaks trying to impart some kind of information upon them that may be new to them. They may never have heard some of this information. It's making sure you're hitting those key points and being well-rounded with it. So it's not like I'm focusing in, I really like this one, so I'm going to hang here for a while, provide you some real depth, and I'm going to skim this one because I'm really not that clear on that one.
Right.
It's my job to go do the work to make sure it's, balanced.
Yeah, I am clear on this topic. And people have a tendency, me included, especially if you're presenting something that you're passionate about, to say, no, I need to get all of these very important points and examples out. And the reality is, again, it goes back to what you said, less is more. I don't need to give every example of the issues we've had with ambulance transport. I need to give some very specific ones and then move on. Yeah. What have we done from there? People don't want to hear all of this back here. It's, okay, you gave me an example. Now tell me what you're doing about it. and tell me how you finished this.
Yeah.
Where's it headed?
Yeah. I think the other thing that we can get caught up in too, and I think this goes more before like board presentations
Right.
or even a conversation maybe having with a employer or something like that. Sometimes we get caught trying to satisfy what I think you want to hear.
Oh yeah.
And I don't always know what you want to hear, but
Right.
I may have gotten a rumor, or I may have gotten an email or a previous conversation, and I end up doing a presentation trying to satisfy what I think you want to hear, or what I think
Right.
a question. I'm going to satisfy this question in my presentation so you don't ask it, versus present the information.
Right.
If truly at the end of it they still have a question, let them ask, rather than trying to satisfy what I think you may want to hear.
Right. Well, and let's go to Monday night's board meeting. And I'm going to start with the presentation. I thought that went well. And Chief Rose, Cody, and I, and Eric Crossman of Facilities had talked about the presentation regarding station remodels at 63. And I said, do me a favor, get pictures of 63 so we can illustrate to the board why this project is important. And what Cody put up there, he had some great pictures, as good as you can get, of the damage, how the place is set up, things like that. And I think it told a story along with the RFQs we had received, or RFPs we had received back from the different architects. And the board, for their part, didn't have a lot of questions at that point other than, well, we've worked with this architect on 2 projects. This is a new architect. Why are you recommending this one? Sure. And we were able to articulate for them those answers. And that's not something you really want to put in a PowerPoint. You don't want to go, here's our comparison of these 2, and this person we had issues with, and this one, they've built all this stuff. You can say that, but just talk about it, right? So that one went pretty well. I think we anticipated what they would ask. Let's go back one. The first presentation we did that night was on the new engines. Mm-hmm. And in my 8 years of being here, we've purchased and ordered a lot of engines. And we were keeping the same fleet at the time, all Rosenbauer. So we would go to the board and say, you approve this in the capital plan. The engines have come in at this price, which is below what we budgeted and what you approved. Are you ready to move forward? And if we do a pre-chassis payment, here's what that looks like. And it just went pretty smoothly. So this time, the wrinkle in this was we're changing manufacturers. Sure. That's our recommendation. Yeah. And so I had asked Cody, I'm like, hey, really focus on the quality problems that we're having with our current manufacturer and the customer service. Let's just focus on those things. And so we did that, but we got too far into the customer care side of it. And it went a little south with the board because they're like, okay, well, are you recommending a different manufacturer just because of some inconveniences on this side? And what's the cost differential between these?
Sure.
And we were able to give them some numbers, but we should have been able to do that. We should have anticipated and done that up front. So no PowerPoint, no real detailed information for them. We didn't explain the cooperative purchase agreement, which for 2 of the members that were there, they've purchased a lot of engines with us and they know what the cooperative rate agreement is. The other 2 board members are new. They didn't know, and we didn't take that into account, and we should have. Sure. So I talked to Cody a little bit afterwards, and I said, here's the way I think we should have approached this that would have gone better and where we can do it better in the future. Mm-hmm. One, why are we switching manufacturers? Well, it's a quality issue with the apparatus. Take pictures, show them, give them a chart of the ongoing issues that we have. Okay, great. And we have poor customer support to back that up. So quality and poor customer support. Why this manufacturer? Well, we compared these, and here's some pictures to show the quality differences. For example, the wiring in one apparatus is just kind of sporadic, but the wiring in a Pierce is sheathed, and it runs in a pattern through the engine that makes sense, why it's routed that way. The same thing with the copper lines. Every fitting you put in one of those things is a failure point. Well, because of that, Pierce runs their copper lines differently. So it would have been good to have pictures of those things to show some of the differences. Sure. And then talk to the board about, hey, we looked at this 3 years ago, and the reason we didn't switch from this manufacturer to this one 3 years ago was because of this. It was a cost difference. Since that time, here's what we've seen.
Sure.
And now we know that based on a similar spec, looking at the two side by side, here's the cost differential between them. This one is a little bit more expensive, about this much. However, the return on investment is better because we can get an additional 4 years.
Sure. That
we're not getting out of here. Here's the quality things. Here's how this manufacturer works. Here's who we've talked to. We could have done that succinctly and put it together and made that presentation to the board, and I think it would have made the board more comfortable.
Sure.
Now, did they approve the purchase? Were we able to talk them through it and provide information? We were.
Sure.
But it took a lot longer than it should have, only because I didn't take into account, hey, we have a number of new board members, and the switching manufacturers is kind of a big deal. I should have, I didn't, now I know. But I think the important thing about those times where your presentation doesn't go well is to recognize it.
Yeah.
Take the feedback, and if you don't have feedback, the feedback that night was all the questions that came out and how we stumbled through answering the questions.
Sure.
That I didn't need any additional feedback from the board.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah,
could have been more prepared. But now you can go back and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work. Now we can improve for the next time.
Yeah, and I think not going too much more into that, but from what I learned just on the Sunday even, I don't get put into a vulnerable spot very often.
Right.
Some of it's just the position currently. It's just where I'm at in my career. It's not often that happens.
Right. And
so definitely on Sunday it was a position of vulnerability. But I think even in that vulnerability, it's the most growth at that point. And kind of a conversation with Chief Abel, we kind of ended up discussing it, and that was what he even brought up was that vulnerability is where growth can occur.
Sure.
If you're willing to put it in. So no different than even this presentation. If you're willing to go back and reflect a little bit, all right, here's what we can do to make the adjustment. Here's what we can do to improve. There's growth. Yeah. And I think that should be the intent throughout our career, personally as well.
Oh, yeah.
Growth. Learn from those little nuances. Be vulnerable on occasion to receive that information. Sure. The other thing that I thought was very good that they do at the Mighty Oaks, which just increases that vulnerability. But after you present a class, so when I go there, I present on Tuesday.
Okay.
On Wednesday, the leadership team sits around a table in the morning, very early before the rest of the day starts, and you sit there and you critique one another. And it's already set up. It's not something that has to be orchestrated. It's part of the plan. You sit there and everybody goes through their class. And when it comes to you sit there, and the rule is you don't say anything. You take notes. Right. And you don't respond. You don't try to justify. You don't try to deflect or anything else.
Right.
No matter what they say, good, bad, or indifferent, take your notes, make the adjustment. You move on to the next person. And then when the next person comes up, it's your job to provide that constructive criticism, the even just encouragement.
Right.
Maybe it was perfect. Maybe it was like, hey, don't change anything. Do that again. Repeat that the next time. It's just you go around. And the concept is obviously iron sharpens iron, but you got to be willing to put yourself into that position and willing to be vulnerable to learn.
Sure. Well, and I think the intent of that is growth.
Yeah.
And everybody in the room knows that. And that's structured growth, structured feedback, which is great. And I think we'd all gain from that if, for example, in a leadership program, right? Yes. You have your presenters. Well, at the end, let's talk about how did the presentation go and walk through it. Don't be afraid to give somebody some negative feedback, constructive criticism on where they could have improved and walk through it. I'm my own worst critic when I walk off stage somewhere presenting. Yep. I presented at Fire Rescue International recently, a brand new topic. I had a compressed period of time to get 2 hours of information into 60 minutes. So one thing I learned is, hey, look, if you're going to have a 60-minute time frame, you can't talk about conflict and dealing with difficult conversations in one presentation.
Sure.
Has to be broke up. But I was focused on what's the key point I need to get across from each of these slides and keep it moving.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And ultimately, I had really positive feedback from the audience. Even later into the evening, people said, hey, I really enjoyed that. But I still went back and looked at it and said, I could have done better.
Sure.
I should have adjusted this. And I think that's the other part of it. Don't walk off stage and have people tell you did great and think that, but I'm right where I need to be.
Yeah, no change needed.
No. Yeah. There's always ways to improve your presentation skills.
Well, I'll give an example of last year's BC Academy. I didn't teach. You were down there several times and taught. One of the things, my job was to facilitate,
right,
and make sure it was successful as we could make it. The other part of it was the evaluations, and so we put together. We had each student put an evaluation together, very simple, but for each presenter.
Right.
And so we had that for. It was eight days, anywhere from 3 to 4 presenters each day. There's a lot of evaluations. Suzanne helped me kind of put them all together, put the feedback on it, and it was interesting because as some of the presenters left, and you're talking about chief officers,
right?
A lot of fire chiefs, a lot of folks that presented a long time, and they'd always leave like, oh, let me know the feedback. Like, oh, you got it, yeah, absolutely. And even after I saw them after that, like, oh, how was the feedback? I was like, oh, it was good. I'm going to send you an evaluation that has some of the details. I'll send it. Oh, great, sounds good. I was surprised some of the feedback that I got in return. None of the evaluations were bad. We'd have every single one of those instructors back tomorrow if we could. But some of them had, very specific comments like, oh, I like this, but, maybe more of this or maybe more of that.
Right.
And it was interesting, some of the responses, because I just sent them like, hey, here's some of the feedback.
Right.
Do with it what you wish. Make a change, make an adjustment. Don't make any, because some of it was like all great feedback. It was interesting to see the feedback in return. Some of the individuals sent back some very, sensitive responses, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't go well." Like, no, it went fine. It went great. The feedback was fine. Just, there are a couple of things in there. Change 1 degree. Like, I don't need an apology. I'll invite you back next year. Yeah. But it's interesting. Obviously, it takes a willingness to receive that and to receive it without being hurt by it. Right. Like, hey, think about this.
No, and it makes us better as we go along, as we present other places. So speaking of the BC Academy, coming up in October, let's just touch on that real quick. What's the logistics with that, or do you have it yet?
As far as dates and stuff?
Yeah.
The first date is October 8th.
Okay.
And then, we do October 8th and 9th. That's a Thursday, Friday. Okay. And then we'll do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday the next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday the following week. As far as the logistics of it, we have, we're still narrowing down and hammering down some of the presenters. Still have some, just dates. Part of it is Ed Tamarowski is helping with the coordination of it, but we're doing fire school when we get here shortly too. So the goal is to open registration shortly after fire school. I think we talked about September 14th or something like that. We'll open registration on the AFCA website so that way people can get their information and get it in there. It's going to be hosted at Tempe again.
Okay, very nice.
They hosted it last year.
Thank you, Chief Reese.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. They hosted it last year in 2020 during a very difficult time when a lot of training was shut down. Right. They were willing to do it, so we offered it obviously again this year just as kind of a thank you to hopefully they can get some more of their folks in there if they choose. Right. But again, Chief Reese has been awesome, not only presenting in there, but also being a willing host during a difficult time. Right. So.
Yeah. Well, I need to get the dates on my calendar because as the AFCA president, I want to at least be able to come in and welcome everyone.
We have a few dates we'll send you, yes.
Okay. On behalf of the AFCA. But I know that second week because, man, it seems like October's already filling up. Yeah. And I accidentally ran across a Jeep event in Kingman.
Oh, nice.
From the 14th to the 17th of October that I've already registered for. It looks like a lot of fun. I've never wheeled in Kingman, so completely off topic. But I'm looking forward to it. No, it's true. We didn't. This is the show about nothing.
Nothing. So, absolutely nothing.
But that's a good place if you're wanting to promote. one part of that is if you want to promote here to BC, you got to go through the BC Academy.
Sure.
But the other part of that is, as someone looking to promote to BC, or if you're a training officer and you're a captain, going in and watching other people present.
Oh, yeah.
And saying, you know what, I like this, not too sure about that. Yeah. This topic was good, but I could see where it could be expanded. These are great opportunities for people to go in and learn.
Yes.
And if you go in with the intent that I not only want to learn from the topic, but I want to learn from the presenter about how they present and what works with an audience.
That brings up a good point. Even when I was doing the presentation on Zoom,
right?
It was interesting at the end of it. Obviously, we were going through some different recommendations on information and how to tweak it a little bit. One of the things he had in there was like, man, I really liked how you did this.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to do that next time. Like, all right, well, good. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna forget all the other stuff. I'm just gonna remember that. Yeah. That's not true, but like I say, you even in a critique where he's coming in and really just there to guide me through the process. It's like, man, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that and I'm going to learn from it. Like I say, you can go to a class and you can take nothing from the information, but you can also watch the presenter and say,
right,
no, I like the way they did that.
Exactly. And, that's what I do when I go to FRI, or if I sit in a class at the Arizona Fire Chiefs Leadership Conference or Summer Fire School, whatever it is. I'm watching the presenter. I'm listening to the material, but I'm also watching the way that they present.
Sure.
And I learn more from dynamic speakers.
Sure.
People that are injecting humor, people that are moving around, that aren't reading to me off a PowerPoint slide, because I hate that. Drives me nuts. But there's all different ways to learn, and part of learning is doing.
Oh, yeah.
So learn, watch, develop, present, get the feedback, listen to it, adjust.
Yeah, you can know all you want, but if you can't apply it, that knowledge does you no good at all.
No, that's, that's what I told Jen about dogs, which is, again, completely off topic. But I told her, I said, I like the idea of dogs, but the practical application in and of itself, I'm not fond of.
Very good.
So
that's one way to apply it.
Yeah. Just apply the practical knowledge. This isn't going to work for me.
Perfect.
But no, being able to present in the fire service, and I'll say this, I don't know how you were when you got in the fire service, but I never expected, one, to be where I am today, but two, I thought I just got on a fire engine and went to calls and did cool stuff, and still had to clean, and do the boring things, but the idea of becoming an instructor or presenter and speaking at different levels, I never realized that would become part of what I do. I just didn't have it.
Yeah, no, I don't know that I still have it, but if you'd probably ask any of my teachers in school, I think some of them thought I was catatonic. So the fact that I even speak, in front of anybody, they'd be like, that is not him. So. Yeah. I never planned to be where I'm at, but obviously you never know what the future holds. No one's guaranteed tomorrow, and here it is. So, like I say, try to get better at it, try to improve, and keep moving.
Yeah, if you went back to my teachers, they'd say, he knows words. Can he spell them?
The good ones too? Can
he define them?
They're more than 4 letters.
Yeah, exactly. They would be shocked and dismayed. So, John, thank you for coming on. I think although this was the show about nothing today, I think it was about something, because the idea of being able to present and organize thoughts and, get them across to an audience where they understand what you're saying, and maintaining that executive presence are vitally important. And even for our new firefighters out there, you may come into this field thinking you're never going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here to tell you, you will. You enter the fire service, you're in politics, and you're going to be presenting to people. So we need to set that as an expectation. That's that morale curve thing.
There you go.
You're not always kicking in doors and fighting fires.
Not so much.
Saving lives.
No.
We try to. Whatever. All right. Well, John, thank you again. Jonah, thank you for being here. To all of you out there, hey, go out, practice some presentation skills, put some information together that you have, share it with somebody else. You only have good things to gain from practice. So, thank you very much.